Hi and welcome back to ArsenalVavel's official YouTube channel. We're back with another episode of My 1 to 11, and we've got a rather special guest on today. We've got Scott from the Red Cannon. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. How you doing? All right?
Yeah, doing good, thanks. It's great to have you on, and I know we've been collaborating with a few of your things recently, and I know you've got some brilliant opinions on some Arsenal players, and I'm really looking forward to seeing who you've got. But I don't know, have you got an exciting team ready for us today?
Yeah, I've got classics like Danny Ceballos,
Oh,
Pascal
don't
Sagan.
tell
They're all
us,
ready to go.
don't
Oh,
tell
is
us
it
too much
first
yet.
11?
Yeah, so just for people watching who don't haven't seen the series before or are not sure on the concept, My 1 to 11 is a series where we get some special guests on and we talk about their personal all-time 1 to 11, so players they might have met, players that they identified with for a certain reason, and we're just going to talk through them and gain kind of their understanding and why they like those players in that team. So Scott, we're going to head straight into it. What formation have you gone for today?
I've gone for a pretty standard bog standard back four. I've gone a 4-4-1-1 or 4-3-1, however how you want to
Okay.
pronounce it. But I've got my number 10 in there. I don't think there'd be massively any big surprises for that one when we come onto it. But
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So we will start off with goalkeeper. Who have you gone for in goal?
Well, listen, for me, so the way I've done this, the way I've thought through this all-time 11, is that I've kind of done it based on my lifetime because I think, to be honest with you, we're all from different generations, and I think if I'm my late sort of mid to late 30s. I think if you ask people who are like yourself, Dan, you're obviously a bit younger than me, and then obviously people that are older than me, you've seen a lot more of players in your, especially when you're younger. So my team is based on predominantly what I've seen. So
Okay.
there are going to be people that potentially I would say possibly there are shouts to be in there, but because I know you've got YouTube and everything, but there'll be players, and it'll be the same for you that are good, but you
Mm,
actually never witnessed them live or you never saw much of them on TV.
yeah.
But the two goalkeepers, the obvious ones was David Seaman and Jens Lehmann, but I've gone with Seaman predominantly because Lehmann was in a great team. I think Seaman was at the club for a long, long time, and yes, we remember a couple of his high-profile mistakes. Obviously, the 9 from the halfway line always hurts to this day. That was actually the first time I think I cried over football. I was 9. And I remember watching that, and I hadn't really experienced, like, yes, Arsenal had lost, but I hadn't experienced like that gut wrenching, we're
Yeah.
gonna win. We would have been the first team to retain the Cup Winners' Cup, which back then was a big deal. And when that happened, yeah, it was tough. But yeah, literally, I could have put him in here for that one save against Sheffield United.
Yeah.
I
I
don't know
remember
if you
seeing that
remember it,
one.
Dan. I talk about this all the time. Every time Dave Seaman pops up on my timeline, and I've actually spoke to him on Twitter about it a couple of times.
Mm,
Like
yeah.
he's responded back. I think it's the greatest save of all time. I mean, I know
Mm,
people talk about Gordon Banks. Schmeichel's made some amazing. Even De Gea's made some amazing ones in recent years.
mm,
But the way that ball goes behind him, and what proves to me how hard it was for him to get that ball back was that he couldn't get his hand behind it and actually, like, because most goalkeepers are sort of shot put, wouldn't you? You get your hand behind and
yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
he had to slice. Like it was like a Roger Federer sort of like forehand or Nadal. He sliced that ball, and you can almost see the backspin where he could only get enough purchase on that ball
Mm,
to just get it out. So that save alone for me is just such legendary stuff. And I think that outside of the few high profile errors that he's made, obviously Ronaldinho, but that was for England. He just gelled with that back four
mm,
really. And obviously I'll talk about those in a minute, but it would be very, very hard to not leave him in. And I think Jens Lehmann had an amazing career at Arsenal.
mm.
Had an amazing career at Arsenal, but I think I go with the heart, and Seaman takes it for
Soon.
me.
Yeah. Fantastic hair as well, didn't he?
Oh mate, yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely, mate.
So we're gonna move on to your back four now. We'll start off with right back. Well, I know there's a few right backs which I know definitely aren't going to be in there. The likes of are kind of I don't think anyone from today's team will probably get into your all-time 11. So
Well, I don't
definitely,
want to give any spoilers, but yes, there is nobody from today's team that are in this lineup, which I
uh,
think, if anybody, I
yeah,
think even the youngest of fans, even if you're like 12, 13 years old, and you sadly don't know a lot of these players we're going to talk about, I think you'd still have a push to be able to get any of that current squad in there. Maybe an Aubameyang, but you'd have to have not known many of our previous strikers.
No, I put Aubameyang in there purely when I did my personal one, just purely because of I didn't want to.
Oh, you have? I haven't seen yours, so you put Aubameyang in there. Did you? Right, okay.
Because I didn't want to put Van Persie in there. I mean, I think it was I put him and Podolski up front just because, well, the wonder of a left foot from Podolski. But I think Aubameyang, just because I described him at the time, and it's before his kind of dip in form, as our best striker since Thierry Henry.
That conversation's very different 18 months ago than it is now. So I do get that.
100%. I mean, you think about it, this time last year, he just won us a Community Shield with that fantastic goal. And then, well, first game of the season, he scored a brilliant goal, and everyone was thinking, Aubameyang, he's here to push on the season, and then no one could have predicted.
But he's talking about being a legend, doesn't he? In his sort of big announcement on his contract, he'd had an interview with Ian Wright, and he was saying, I want to be a legend, and we'll see.
Fingers crossed this season he can put it right.
Yeah.
We'll go on to right back. So who have you gone for right back?
I've gone Lee Dixon.
Lee Dixon. Okay.
I've got Lee Dixon. Yeah. My back four's nothing really out of the ordinary. I think it's going to be a quite obvious pick. Lee was listen, the words I'm going to use for this, my defenders are going to probably be applicable to most, and that they just were professional. They got the job done. One of the things as well about all of them, and especially with Lee as well, was that they had that grit about him, and Lee did. He had that grit, and he wasn't a pushover. He would let the attackers know he was there. But he wasn't a dirty player. Like, he didn't. I don't remember him getting sent off a lot of times. Yes, he picked up a few bookings here and there. He wasn't the best going forward. I don't think he isn't. He wasn't notorious for going forward. But back in that era and back in that day, we were 1-0 to the Arsenal. Like, their role was to keep clean sheet after clean sheet after clean sheet. And I don't think
same old.
Yeah, that's it. And listen, we take that tomorrow. And I think George Graham made that back four what it was. Yeah. And they, yes, potentially that back four now wouldn't be what a modern day manager would look for, a lot of their characteristics, but going on what they delivered, trophies, league titles, we won the cup competition as well. Great servant for the club. And Lee Dixon gets my vote for right back.
Lee Dixon. Okay. And centre backs. We won't go for the pairing. We'll just go for them individually. So who have you gone for as your right centre back, or the first of your two centre backs? You know what it is. I've literally just jotted them down on paper. So I can't remember which way around, left or right, but I'll just tell you the first one. So I've gone with Mr. Arsenal himself, Tony Adams. I think if anybody does an all-time 11 and doesn't get Tony Adams in there, you got to have serious questions. You got to ask yourself why. Tony, I mean, listen, that sums it all up. Everton, 1998. That quote from Martin Tyler. That was the first championship that I was old enough to really appreciate. We won it in 89, but I was very, very young, so I don't remember it, sadly. But 98, I'll show you it sometime, Dan. We'll do it on the channel. I made a scrapbook. Ironically, I made a scrapbook that year, and I used to cut out all of the pictures out of the paper. And I used to do almost like a little YouTube, player ratings and everything else. And I've still got that in the garage. And that happened to be 97, 98. I did it. And I always, when I think of Tony Adams, I just remember that pose, the one that he's got the statue on, that goal against Everton. What a finish. And listen, he didn't make a career on that finish, but just hit that guy, I'm telling you, he had string on the back. It was like Spider-Man. He had some sort of web on the back of his hand to the linesman, and it was just up it goes. And the linesman just has to put his hand up. The linesman were like, Tone says it's off. It's got to be off then. Go on then. Like, I'll have an easy day. I'm doing Arsenal today. They'll do the offsides for me. And then you talk about his leadership qualities. I mean, you just don't make him like that anymore. No. I don't know if did you ever have a chance to read his book at all? I didn't read his, but no, I've read Ray Parler's autobiography, and I've heard a lot of.
Right. Well, I'm the other way around. Yeah, I want to read Ray Parler's. I've heard snippets of that, and I think I'd enjoy that, but I've never done it. But yeah, Tony had his problems off field. But as with
drinking at a certain stage, didn't he?
Yeah, drinking was his issue. I believe he got locked up for possibly some violence somewhere. I think, listen, if Tony had been around this day and age with social media and camera phones, and he would have been a right scallywag, and he would have got a lot of stick. But thankfully back then that kind of stuff wasn't around. He sorted his life out. And but listen, when he turned up on a Saturday, 3 p.m. for the club, You know, his leadership, and you know, when I think about it now about how we lack leaders, or we have done for a number of years. Like when I say a leader, I mean a true leader. You know, you would love to. I'd love to see Tony in and around the club and actually have some involvement somewhere. Maybe not as manager. I don't agree with legends being managers. I think it's too risky.
No, you said,
Yeah, you know, you look at like Lampard at Chelsea. You know, they always end up getting sacked, and I hate it if a legend like Henry or someone came in and then we end up having to push them out and seeing all that vile abuse that the managers get, because they always get it at every club. So I would never want Tony back at the club as a manager, but you know, as a coaching capacity, you know, or more of an ambassador role, which I think he has done previously. I would like him around the club.
You have seen some of his viral coaching clips, haven't you, of him and the clips going like that? And
yeah, hilarious. They are a bit funny. They are funny, but yeah, he's a quirky guy.
Yeah,
I don't mind my Percy the Pig mug, by the way, guys. This is not mine.
Did you? I don't know if you heard the story. I'm pretty sure it's Tony Adams, but it was in Ray Parlour's autobiography. But apparently, there was one time they went to a meal somewhere, and I think they'd lost to Spurs, and they went out for a meal somewhere, and some Spurs fans were giving it the big un at one table. And they started shouting some sort of started to get a turn for the worse in the kind of abuse they were shouting. And apparently Tony picked up a fire extinguisher and just kind of sprayed him with it.
Yeah.
Mate,
they were lads. Listen, lads.
Him and Ray
back then,
you know. For sure. But I remember I went to Portsmouth away in the FA Cup before coronavirus in the year we won the FA Cup. Before the fans we went into lockdown, and it was just before I remember going to Fratton Park and watching that game, and Tony Adams was a half-time guest there, and I just remember, because he used to play for Portsmouth, I believe, or something like that. He
did. Yeah,
and I just remember he walked out on the pitch, and all of a sudden, all the Arsenal fans just started chanting Tony Adams' name, and I just remember kind of standing there like, this is a whole different generation to the Arsenal that I'm used to, and especially being in and amongst away fans, those are normally your kind of fans that have been there for longer compared to home fans and know what proper Arsenal means. And I just remember standing there being like, this is it felt so old school, because Martin Keown was there on the BT Sport panel as well, and they're shouting, "There's only one Keown," and all those chants. And it seemed like a piece of history. But you just remember some of the special players we had at the club.
Yeah, I think it's I'm not gonna lie to you, mate. It's quite depressing looking at this team sheet when I feel as though that literally every single one of them would obviously, you'd expect your all-time 11 to walk into a current team, unless you're at Manchester City, and then probably not. But you know, it's not just about what they delivered on the field, it's about what they meant to the fans and your connection. Yes, I know when you're younger, I've certainly learned this the hard way, because I've grown up seeing your Fabregases go, your Nasri's go, your Adebayors go. I've seen a lot of players that you get a connection with, and then sadly they go. So as you get older, I think you do learn you can't attach yourself to players too much. When you're a kid, they're like your heroes, you know, especially if they deliver success. And a lot of these names I'm going to be going through, they were my heroes as a kid. You know, I looked up to these guys, and thankfully players like Tony Adams, you know, really will go down history and be remembered for that.
For sure. So you've gone for Lee Dixon and Tony Adams to make up the first half of your centre back. Your defensive line. Oh, imagine what we could do with a character like Tony Adams in our back line in today's
Can
game.
you imagine, literally, like, you know, when Aubameyang's just sort of out on the wing with his head dropped, he would just come here, like, sort of, you know. But listen, I mean, that's going to be applicable to a few of these names, because it isn't just who's wearing the armband, like, you know. But he specifically was a great leader, and that's why they call him Mr. Arsenal. Yeah,
for sure. So Tony Adams and Lee Dixon. Who's your second centre back you're going for?
So he's been partnered by. So there was three candidates for this. The three candidates being Martin Keown, Sol Campbell, and Steve Bold. Now, Baldy was originally part of that back four, and then Keown is what most people remember, really. But Baldy, between the pair of them, you had Andy Linnigan there, who used to drop in and out as well. Baldy was never quite at the level of the player I've gone with, and neither was Martin Keown. And I've gone with Sol Campbell. Listen, Sol Campbell, Invincible. He did the unthinkable.
The story behind it as well.
Sorry?
the story behind it as well, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, he done the unthinkable, and I'll tell you what, that takes grapefruits. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
seriously, like you've got to think of how that could have gone different, right? So he's come to Arsenal, and yes, this isn't the Arsenal of nowadays, right? So this would be probably very, very similar to a United player going to City now. You see it as a clear upgrade. Yes, okay, Tottenham have never had the success that United had, but let's go over the last 5 years. United haven't had much success. If somebody, the captain, the leader of United, who they got is Fernandez at the moment, right? So let's say, I think he's captain. Sorry, no, it's Maguire. So I lie. It's Maguire.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
okay, Maguire's not that. Yeah, Maguire's not that good, but Bruno's their man, right? So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
Bruno just said tomorrow, run his deal down and just said, look, I'm off to City. I'm going to win trophies. I want to go. I want to elevate myself. That's the level for people that not old enough to remember, or just don't quite fully understand that situation. It was huge, and like you said, the story behind it, it came out of nowhere. Like that just doesn't happen now. You
Just walking
cannot
out to
do
the press
that.
conference.
Literally, they
Yeah.
could have put him under a sheet and just gone da-da.
Yeah, yeah.
You cannot you just can't do that anymore. So it was such a shock. But I'll be honest with you, when it actually happened, I had sadly I've always surrounded myself with Spurs fans, not through design. It's just worked out that way.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I had my two best friends were Spurs fans, and they were devastated. They were absolutely devastated because I'd spent years arguing with them when they were saying, "Oh, Sol Campbell, he's better than Tony Adams, blah blah blah. He's much better." Da, da, da. And I'm like, okay, like you would have that argument because he was their captain. They looked up to him, and we took their captain. And not only did we take him, he done the biz. Like he didn't come to Arsenal and just sort of, he did. Yeah, he could have come to Arsenal. And let's be real, that Invincibles team and teams prior to it, it was primed for success. But he was a big part of that. He was a big part of that. And my best sort of memory of Sol Campbell, both good and bad, is the 2006 final. Again, I literally, and it's only been a couple of times it's happened, but when he scored that goal in the 2006 Champions League final against Barca, I cried. I ran around my flat. I remember it to this day because he'd had the goal ruled out for England against Argentina. There was another header I think he scored, a big important header for England that got ruled out. And he was like, this guy, no matter what he did, his big moments, everything, there was always something conspiring against him. And when we went down to 10 men and it was like, oh, we're going to lose. And then all of a sudden he scored that header and we went 1-0 up. I just went ballistic. I was running around. Oh my God. And I was so convinced we were going to win it. I was like, it's going to happen. This is our time. We'd always fell short in the Champions League. And I thought it's written in the stars, right? You remember when Chelsea won? I was thinking it's written in the stars, we're going to win. Campbell's the guy. He's got the header. It counts. Yes. And I literally was on the floor crying with happiness, but it was just too early. And and he was just a beast. He read the game well, but he had all the attributes of what if you was sculpting a centre back, big, strong, good in the air, quick, turn of pace, intelligent, and again, the same as Tony Adams, he was a natural leader as well. And boy, if we could get that, if he could be playing now, it would be brilliant. I really rated him, and he came back to the club, didn't he? If I remember rightly, Dan, he came back for a short loan spell, didn't he? I think to help Wenger out.
I think so. I'm not 100% sure. But I think.
Yeah, he did. I think I remember him coming back because we were really short in the January window or something. He come back and played a handful of games, but great player. I'm not sure he's had. It's a different topic altogether, but I think he wants to do well in management. I don't feel like he's been given the opportunities that he probably deserves. But wish him well. And again, it's another person I'd love at the club.
So you've gone for Sol Campbell, Tony Adams, and Lee Dixon as your back line. Who's going to finish that off and go for your left back role?
Well, I still haven't made my mind up on this one. I've got two names there. That's probably similar on a lot of people's for left back. There's Hart and there's Head. So you're putting me on the spot. I've been thinking about who I'm going to go for. And this literally does depend on. It is a hard decision. It is a hard decision. So I'm going to go Nigel Winterburn.
Who have you got? Who have you got to decide?
Yeah. So the head says Ashley Cole. The heart says Nigel Winterburn. The head says Ashley Cole because listen, he was a quality player. absolutely quality player. But Cashley Cole will always be Cashley
Yeah.
Cole. I've spent many years very, very resentful to him. As I've got a bit older now, I've kind of seen what the club has become and turned into, and seen what happened with Van Persie and others. And I see his view. I see his perspective on things a bit more. But at the end of the day, we were still offering him a fantastic deal, and he was at a big, big club that was winning trophies, and you still went for that little bit extra,
That's
and you went to Chelsea.
Yeah, that's the difference between like the Van Persie one. Like at the time, we were
yeah.
winning stuff, whereas when Van Persie went to Man United, he went and then won a Premier League title. So that's the kind of difference there. Do you not think? I mean, I know it's a bit of a obviously a jump in generation, but quite a few of us put Kieran Tierney in as left back.
Listen, I get that. Yeah, I get that. But when I'm doing an all-time 11, I have to look at everything. So yes, Tierney would be someone that would definitely, be possibly in this lineup. But on today, on the 21st of August, he hasn't done enough at the club. Obviously, he's been plagued by injuries, which again is not his fault. Yeah. I can see that the talent's there. I can see that he's got the potential. And yes, he could go down as, if you ask me this again in 2 to 3 years, well, we see how he progresses. And listen, it ain't based on what Arsenal win, because the likelihood is we're not going to win a league title in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So yes, Tierney would be an option, but because of the fact that, as I say, it's hard to put anyone for me in an all-time 11 when it's just still quite early in their career, and obviously someone who we haven't really ever had more than 10 games out of at a time. True. But I get it. I do get it. But it was between Cole and Winterburn. The heart says, the head says Ashley Cole. I think pound for pound, and I don't actually mean money when I say that. I just mean on a pitch, Ashley Cole versus Nigel Winterburn. I think Cole's got his number, but there's a bit more to an all-time 11 than just pure talent. And that's where Winterburn takes it. And I'm going to put Winterburn in because when you're building this all-time 11, Sol Camp, you've got Seaman, I've got Dixon, I've got Adams and Campbell. Cole, yes, obviously played with Campbell, but Winterburn played with Dixon and Adams and Seaman, so they all kind of gelled together. So I think as a compact unit, Winterburn being there would take it. My greatest memory of Nigel Winterburn was the goal he scored at Stamford Bridge. He scored this worldie with the outside of his left boot. My dad supports Chelsea, and I remember watching it with him, and it was 3-2 to Arsenal, 2-2 it was. Okay. And we scored. I think Bergkamp scored, and I jumped up and I'm rubbing it in his face. And I think Zola equalised, or Vialli. He jumped up and he's rubbing it in my face. And it was quite good memories as a child. And then Winterburn scored that one, top bins. And he was a solid winger. Again, same applicable to the same as Dixon. He wasn't the best going forward. He could put in a cross, but he knew the dark arts of the game. He knew how to let attackers know he's there. And as a unit, again, there hasn't been many defenses like it. So Ashley Cole, you were very close, mate, but it's hard to put someone in that I'm still very bitter towards. It just wouldn't seem right.
No, that's fair enough. So Nigel Winterburn, I put obviously, I guess you could say this is more my generation of Arsenal I've grown up watching, but I put Monreal in mine just because Mr. Consistent.
Monreal's a good player.
Mr. Consistent, it's kind of at least a 7 out of 10 performance. Every single game.
And he got a goal as well. Monreal liked a big goal against United, didn't he?
Man United, City in the FA Cup. I mean, he was just what was it, La Caraba they called him. Brilliant player he was. But
this is the point. This is what we said at the beginning of the chat, Dan, is exactly, it's all about generations, and nobody can ever tell somebody else they're wrong. It's not right. It wouldn't be right for me to sit here and say to you, well, how many titles has Monreal won? It's not like that. It's what that player means to you.
What it means to you.
You would have watched him. Exactly. And that's, it literally does depend. And this is what's kind of, I feel a little bit sad with the club, is that those, those people younger than yourself, who are 13, 14, 15, 16 age, if they're having this conversation when they're my age, their all-time 11s may not consist of anybody, I'm saying today, because, they would look at, maybe a Mesut Ozil, as because they've, quality player. But there would be using certain players that, because it just wasn't old enough to experience. And that the same for me. As I say, if you ask, I'll give you Richard from the Over and Over Again YouTube channel. He's a little bit older than me, and I can almost guarantee you that his team would be very, very different to mine, because it's a different generation.
No, that I guess I am probably part of that generation because, well, I was only born in 2001, so I kind of
Yeah.
grew up watching and started supporting Arsenal when it was your Fabregas, Nasri, Van Persie, that kind of
Yeah.
generation.
So you were hurt very early on. You did never
Yeah.
really got to you got what you went through, what I went through, but you went through at a very young age, because you would have been very attached to Fabregas, I'm assuming. Like,
Yes,
you probably
Fabregas was
idolized him,
my
right?
first kind of love as an Arsenal player. Fabregas,
Yeah, and then
the
it
first
hurt
shirt
when he
I
was on
got.
that bus with the Barcelona shirt. That would have hurt you. You know, it hurt me, and I was obviously a lot older than you. So,
Yeah,
I was fortunate that a lot of these players that are in my lineup
yeah,
didn't do that to me, because
no,
I was just lucky.
yeah,
So
yeah, no, for sure. Fabregas was that was the first name I got on the back of his shirt.
yeah.
The first player that I said, oh, I want to see him play. Yeah, Fabregas hurt me, man. But yeah, I guess
Pro
for
tip,
me,
Dan. Pro tip: never get players' names on the back of your shirt. It never
no,
ends
no,
well.
no, no, no. I learned that lesson after I got myself an Alexis Sanchez shirt. But
Okay.
I got it on my favorite Arsenal kit of all time, which was the black and pink one. I don't know if you remember
Oh
it.
yeah. I remember the one.
That kit was incredible, and I got Alexis on the
Yeah.
back, and I had to throw it away. I couldn't keep it.
Oh mate. I've
Um,
got the last name. Well, I say name, but the last thing I had, which I've got, is I call it the Robert Perez shirt. It's the very yellow blue O2,
yes,
and it had the blue collar. I've
yeah,
got that upstairs, and it was all. I actually bought it. It was too big for me. I never wore it for years. Well, I've padded out a bit as I've got older now, so it fits me now. But on the back of that, I've got Champs '04.
oh,
Champs '04. Nice. The only downside is it's because I wore it a lot when I was like years ago. It's a bit flaky now. Like, it started coming off a bit,
okay, yeah,
but it does say Champs '04, and I'm like, that's what you do. That's the shirt.
yeah,
That's how you do it.
yeah, brilliant. So that's an incredible back line you've gone there. You've gone for Dixon, Mr. Arsenal, Tony Adams, Sol Campbell, and Nigel Winterburn, with David Seaman in goal behind. We're going to move on to that kind of the midfield section now. What formation do you say you went for again?
So I've got two. I've got two wingers, and I've got two centre midfielders, a 10 and one striker.
Okay. So we'll go for the two midfielders. Who have you gone for as your first?
Okay, so I will do what I would like to think is probably the obvious one, and that's Patrick Vieira. Again, Patrick Vieira was my Cesc Fabregas to you. He came in, and listen, he had massive shoes to fill as far as being Arsenal captain to take over from Tony Adams. He really did, because realistically, 95% of the people out there, no, 99.9% of players would fail as a captain, and they would be like, well, that guy's just, listen, there's not many people that will say Patrick was not a good captain. He inspired the Invincibles. Listen, his last kick of the game was to beat United in a penalty shootout. He said goodbye with an FA Cup, one of many. And he, when he came in, he was cheap. Back in the day, I think 3.5 million rings a bell. I might be wrong there, but even back then it was cheap.
It's from one of the Milan clubs, wasn't it?
No, he came from. You might be right. No, I thought it was someone in France, but you might be right. It might be maybe Inter Milan.
Yeah.
But yeah, he came in, and listen, it was one of those Wenger signings, kind of like who's this guy, but whatever, really. And he made an impact straight away. Listen, he had disciplinary issues, but he was never a dirty player, because he had something that players don't have now, all back then, is that he had the grit and but he also had the flair going forward. Like, you think of Kante, for instance. Yeah, he's kind of like the top level defensive midfielder. Yeah, world class. Did he win the Ballon d'Or last year?
No,
he was there or thereabouts.
I don't think he did. No, but I think he's in contention for this year.
Is it this year? Yeah. So listen, Kante's a defensive midfielder. He breaks up play. He's got energy in abundance. He gets around the field. So yeah. But what Vieira is he was kind of like Kante, but like a foot taller. Yeah. But also had the final pass. Do you know what I mean? Like, he could create as well. And Vieira was for those of you, maybe yourself that don't remember too much of his band, you'd have seen the videos with Roy Keane, and the rivalry, and that rivalry was so fierce that it was just brilliant, because Roy Keane thought he was the bollocks. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is my pitch. I run this midfield. No matter who we're playing, I'm in charge. And Vieira's like, not today, son. Like, I'm here. This is
Yeah.
my field, and you're on it. And it was just brilliant. And their battles were legendary. And what's hilarious about Patrick Vieira is that he comes off. You'd see, if you'd never heard him speak before, you'd be like, that guy. You'd picture how he'd speak, and he'd be flying into tackles, and he'd be getting reds here and yellows there, and they'd come off and they'd go, "Oh, Patrick, fit today." Well, yes, today's been very, very well. I've enjoyed it. And he's like so softly spoken that it was hilarious. It never really truly matched his, it goes to show, don't judge. Yeah. Don't judge a book by its cover. But yeah, as far as all-round midfielders go, you look at some of the tackles as well. If you go back and look, he would slide in and just sort of like scoop the ball out. And I know that's an obvious way to tackle, but he would just find ways of getting that ball, and then he'd just be back on his feet and he's away. He had a shot on him from time to time. He scored a few worldies, but he wasn't there to do that. But yeah, he's first ballot. Probably one of the first one or two names on this first 11 for me.
Yeah, for sure. And just quickly, what's your thoughts on his him becoming the manager at Crystal Palace this season? You hopeful?
Yeah, I fear for him at Palace, because I don't think. I don't think they're going places with or without him, if I'm honest with you. Palace have got a bit of a habit of stabilizing for 4 or 5 years, and then they drop like a stone, and then they go away for 4 or 5 years, and then they come back up. Roy done well there. I think he done what he could with the squad. I think Zaha's not the same player he was.
No.
I think they've made a couple of signings. I haven't paid too much attention, but listen, great to see him. I want to see him, more of him. It's nice to see him in the country and on TV and everything. But as I said earlier, I don't really want him to manage Arsenal. I think he will. I think he could potentially be the next manager. Well, I say that if Arteta doesn't survive this season, then obviously not. But if Arteta survives another couple of years, then I think Vieira will be possibly the next manager. But great players don't always make great managers, but I wish him success. I will follow their results more than what I would have done. It'll be very interesting. I mean, he's got bags of experience. It isn't just what he done at Arsenal. He's won a World Cup. And what, did they win the Euros? They did. I think he did. Yeah, he won the Euros and the World Cup. So he's won everything. The guy's just quality. But as again, I don't know that always translates to being a world-class manager.
Yeah. I know we were chatting about this on the tier list the other day, as to we were doing a video on Scott's channel as to all the players in the Arsenal squad and who we would keep, sell, loan, or drive to the airport. And I remember we put, I don't know where you finalised it, but Reece Nelson, I think you put on get rid of, but I'd love to see him go on loan at Crystal Palace and play. Maybe
the link's there, isn't it? Because if you,
I don't think it will happen. I think that'd be I'd love to see that. Just the style of football they play with kind of fast-paced wingers, and then obviously playing under Vieira, someone who knows Arsenal, someone that can try and build him up to go back and do a job potentially next season. I'd love to see someone like Reece Nelson go on loan there.
I would like any of it. If we've got anybody that we're planning on putting out on loan, if it's Reece Nelson or anybody over the next week, Palace is an ideal scenario, because the whole Daniel Ek thing with Arsenal and the consortium or the whatever Bergkamp, Omri, and Vieira are meant to be. We don't really know what they are meant to be, but they have all spoken publicly to back it. Now, whether that means whether it's an eye to the future, Vieira will be, he'll always be a gooner, I think that he would do what he can to help us. And I do think he's got his eyes on the job. I do think that he wants to be Arsenal manager one day. So, taking on any of our youngsters and help them grow that potentially could flourish in years to come is probably, in everybody's best interest if we were going to hand select a club, definitely.
Definitely. So you've gone for Patrick Vieira as your first midfielder. Who have you gone for as a second?
Well, the second midfielder I've gone for, and I'm going to contradict myself because I've said throughout this chat that I will go for players that I've seen a lot of and that I can say I've witnessed and experienced. But the person I've gone here is completely going against that, Dan. You know me, I backtrack quite a lot, self-confessed. But I've got Liam Brady. Because, I didn't see a lot of him. I've seen bits and pieces. I've seen clips, but I've heard so much about him. I've spoken to people that watched him play, and I just feel as though purely because I've heard so much about him, he was a dynamic midfielder. He was a playmaker, completely beyond his generation. He had over hundreds and hundreds of appearances for Arsenal. I don't know the exact number, but he was at the club for a long, long time. The other candidates that potentially could get there that came to mind, Fabregas, obviously, was one that, you know, probably a lot of people would go with, and I fully get that. But I'm a bitter old man, and I struggle with the Chelsea thing. It just hurts me, so I just couldn't do it. And I think, again, you know, outside of Fabregas, the other candidates, Petit doesn't get anywhere near it. He had a good couple of years at Arsenal, but again, he ended up going on to other things. You got, but the main other person would have been Gilberto. Gilberto was a solid. You didn't know he was there, right? That was what's so great about him. He just done a job, and you didn't know he was there. So, you know, but for me, just purely because so many people that watched this guy, Liam Brady, play, have all told me that he was absolutely amazing, and that he was well before his time. So on that basis, I just felt as though I have to put him in there, regardless of whether he was my generation or not.
Okay. No shout for Ray Parlour at all in there?
He might be coming.
Okay, maybe on the bench or something like that, if there was a bench section of this. But, so yeah, sorry, no shout for Ray Parlour at all?
Well, Ray Parlour is in there, but he's just not central midfielder.
Okay. Oh, okay. So
so you jumped the gun there. See?
Okay, no worries. Okay, so you got Ray Parlour up front? No, not up front. What was it? They called him the Romford Pele, wasn't it? We'll get onto that. So Vieira and Liam Brady. Liam Brady, again, a player that, like, I've probably heard even less than you have, just because, again, generations, kind of like 2-3 generations before me. So yeah, and again, an icon of the club. He's on the if I'm not mistaken, he's on the Emirates, isn't he? He was one of the players up there.
He is, yeah. And I just googled him earlier on when I was going through names and stuff, and he is our head of youth development at the moment, which I completely forgot. And he's 55, which again, I thought he was older than that, but apparently he still plays. He still kicks around. He's still pretty good, apparently. But yeah, 307 appearances, 59 goals. And some of the quotes that, you know, again, what I was saying earlier, as people mentioned, is that he was ahead of his time as a playmaker. And as I say, I think that if I put Fabregas in there, not too many people would argue.
Just purely because, like I said,
and I get it because, again, he was you know, if I was your age, I probably would have done as well, because your connection to that player will, you know, what he meant to you and what he did. And you'll remember when he scored the penalty against Spurs with a broken leg or ankle or whatever it was, you know, all those things he done, you know, dominating Vieira, you know, he had Vieira on a shoestring against Juventus that day.
Yeah. Well, he was born,
you know, so you will,
wasn't he?
Yeah, so you will have that connection, but as I say, I never had that quite as strong a connection, to the point where I'm willing to sort of sacrifice what Fabregas done, because I know that, I say, Brady is a true legend of the club, and that'll stay that way. So,
okay, no worries. So you said you've gone for two wingers on either side, and then a number 10 and a striker. I mean,
that's right. Yeah.
I don't think you have to be an expert to guess who the number 10 and the striker are going to be, but we'll get
there. No, but we'll talk about it when we get there.
So right winger.
Yeah, so I've put Parlour in here, right? So you mentioned about him playing in, so you mentioned about him playing central midfield. Parlour was right foot. He could play on the right, and he did on occasions. There's a story actually behind Ray Parlour. Ray Parlour is the reason that I support Arsenal. I don't know if I've mentioned this to you on my channel.
No, you haven't. No.
So basically, so I didn't live with my dad growing up, and he was a big football fan, and he supports Chelsea. But I did see my dad, just didn't live with him. And I went on a football course. I don't know if they still do it now, but I was only about 5-6 years old. And it was like half term, and you would go and basically learn how to play football. My mum sent me for like a week. And I can't remember what it was, but I won some sort of award. I don't know if it was for like, I don't know, but I won an award for something. And I had my picture taken in the paper and stuff. And on the last day of the course, Ray Parlour came down, and he was giving out all the trophies to the kids. And obviously I'm being one of them. Now, thinking back on it, Ray Parlour could have only been a youth player at the time. He could have only been 18, 19. But I had no idea who he was. And I shook his hand and, you know, barely said a word to him. But he was really nice and friendly. And I said to my mum, I was like, oh, who does he play for? She says, oh, he plays for Arsenal. I went, Arsenal it is. Like, I hadn't really at that point really affiliated to a club. I played football. I liked football. Yeah. My dad hadn't really got stuck into me to try and get me to support Chelsea. And Listen, Chelsea in 1990, 91 are not the Chelsea nowadays.
No,
Like, even
no.
if he tried, I'd have been like, sorry, hang on. Your club just got bought for £1 and you got nobody in the stadium. I don't think
Yeah.
so. So, that wouldn't have happened. But yeah, so literally I chose Arsenal because of Ray Parlour. So he has always had a sort of I've already had a deep connection with him, and I've always followed him even after his career with Arsenal finished. But, up until recently, there's been a few things he's done on TalkSport that have upset me a little bit. But
Yeah.
other than that,
Yeah.
outside of that, I think he's a top quality bloke. He just looks like a guy you can go down the pub with, you can have a chat with, a barbecue with. Yeah,
Proper Arsenal,
I think he's a bit of a closet alcoholic, but listen, he's in great shape. If you watch the Harry's Heroes thing, the guy's in shape, like, even though he has a beer or two.
Yeah. Or two, or
And
three, or
listen,
four.
yeah, and I think exactly. What the thing is with Ray when he played for us is that he just again, something that I've said to you before on my channel is that I expect my players to go out there and give 110%. And even if that 110% isn't good enough, you're wearing this shirt that you're being paid to do it, and I would do it for free, and so would you.
Yeah.
And he always did. He gave everything, And yes, back then the culture was very different. He probably was turning up. You've heard the stories about him turning up half cut, and everything else. But unfortunately, so was half the squad. But he'd still turn up and do it. I think a lot of youngsters now, if they were in that condition, one, they wouldn't be allowed, but two, if they did, they'd probably ring in sick or be like, I'm just out and play FIFA. Do you know what I mean? They wouldn't turn up, but they did. And I remember the goal he scored in the cup final against Chelsea, 2002. Yeah, it's only Ray Parlour. Do you know what I mean? Like that was it wasn't quite the end of his career, but obviously it was the tail end of his Arsenal days. And it was nice for him to get that moment of glory. And listen, he's still been in and around the club a lot. He's, I think he might have been doing the tours a little while ago. I might be wrong.
He does a lot with the media side of things. Like when we've done like our pre-season tours, he'll go out and
he does, doesn't he?
I remember when we went to Singapore, he was out there and was like trying all the local cuisine and all the local beers and stuff. So, I mean, and also when the Camden Town section in the Emirates opened, he was pouring the first pint and everything. Well, shock. So yeah, no, he's very involved with the media side of things, and you can order yourself a birthday shout out from him now as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, can you? I might do one of them. I did tweet him once on one of his tweets. I did actually tweet and tell him, like, briefly that story. I was like, I met you when I was a kid and I only support Arsenal because of you. But I've bantered him off. I'm like, it's your fault, Ray, because if I hadn't met you, I would be going through this bloody pain today. I've said that to him a couple of times, but he's never responded. But yeah, I would love to meet him again one day to actually have that conversation and say every single good moment that I've experienced is because of you. Yes, yes, it was my choice, but at the end of the day, had you not been there on that day, I may never have chose Arsenal. But likewise, I would like to pull him up and say every single bit of pain I've had is also because of you as well. Yeah. But yeah, so I think Ray Parlour, I appreciate he probably doesn't get in many all-time 11s, but again, because of that connection and that story, I think that's why I had to find a position for him in the team.
Mate, read his autobiography. I cannot recommend it enough. It was one of my favourite reads I've ever sat down.
It's definitely on the to-do list. I've been meaning to for quite a long time.
Because I remember I got it in one of my Arsenal membership packs. I think maybe like 3-4 years back. So I think it's called like the Romford Pele, something like that. But anyone watching as well, I'd highly recommend to give that a read. So yeah, Ray Parlour on the right. Who have you gone for on the left?
Bobby Perez. Top boy.
Yeah,
he's that guy. What a player! I didn't realize until recent years. I did a little bit of YouTube scouting at one point because I felt a little bit depressed. I was like, do you know what? I want to watch some proper football. I don't think I fully appreciated how good he was until now, because some of the goals he scored, like I remember, I think it was against Villa. He had this lob. Can't remember who was in goal, but he scored some quality goals. And the only thing that guy ever did wrong was that penalty. Do you remember that?
The penalty that went wrong when he just put it off to Henry, and then it all just kind of.
And then they're both like, "What?
Yeah,
what?" And then they interviewed Henry after, and Henry was like, "Don't."
You see, Barcelona did it like the way I think it was meant
and it worked.
And it worked, yeah. No, that was a calamitous moment, wasn't it?
And listen, only Arsenal, Dan, right? Only Arsenal. Thierry Henry, Robert Perez, two are possibly the greatest Premier League players, if not, Henry could potentially be number one. and they couldn't get that penalty right. They must have tried that 100 times in training. It worked. Bang, 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 bang every
He probably
time.
forgot, didn't he? He probably forgot.
Mate, what it was, what actually went wrong is Perez skimmed the ball. He went to roll it, but he didn't connect with the ball enough. And as he did it, the ball moved a little bit, and Perez was like, "Oh shit, did the ref see that? Like, have I moved it enough?" And by then, the defenders are like, "Nah, I'm kicking that out. I don't care."
Yeah,
and Omri's like, "It didn't move."
You know what though? Like, I think they were fairly decent players in their time. I think we can excuse it. They've done a couple of other things for the club, haven't they? So,
mate, Robert Perez, he was just. You look during his time at Arsenal, he was just involved in everything, like the build up. Even if he wasn't getting the final assist, he'd always be dragging defenders away. Always got his head up. That's another thing as well with Perez is he could run, but he'd be watching the play. And I've said quite a lot. You've got footballers that are intelligent, you've got footballers that are athletes, and then you've got your top quality players that have got both. Now, I think in the modern day, there's a lot more athletes now. There's a lot of people that are just good athletes and can play football. And actually, because they're such good athletes, they can progress and get quite far in the game. Whereas, intelligence will get you so far. And Perez wasn't the best athlete by any means, but listen, he had intelligence and he had the touch. And as I say, he was a big part of all of our success back then. And I don't know what his most assists was in a season, but sadly, I mean, as I say, Henry he lived a little bit in Henry's shadow. I don't think he was as appreciated as much. I don't think we appreciate him as much as we should have done. But that was just because there was an abundance of talent around him. There was so many players. Freddie Ljungberg doesn't make my. Doesn't make my 11, but again, very, very close. Honorable mention. And listen, if I was going to make a team and I was going to sacrifice a defender, maybe I'd get Ljungberg in there somewhere. But listen, when you look at my defenders, you can't leave those out. So.
Ljungberg again, another fantastic player. We've had some other kind of modern days. I mean, hopefully you should be able to see somewhere on the screen right now. We should have a graphic of what Scott's team is looking like so far. So just to run through what we have got so far, we've got Seaman in goal, we've got Dixon, Tony Adams, Sol Campbell and Winterburn at the back four. You've got Vieira and Liam Brady in midfield, and then you've got Parlour on the right, and then Perez on the left. We've got two more kind of tasty. You've got a 10, you've got the striker. I wonder who they could be, but just a bit of background info, Scott, just on yourself. Obviously, you've told us how you became an Arsenal fan, but how would you describe yourself as an Arsenal fan? Are you like, obviously, I know you're doing a lot of stuff with the Red Cannon now and watch-alongs and stuff like that, which is doing brilliant, by the way, and all your links will be in the description, so make sure to check them out, guys. But how would you describe yourself as an Arsenal fan? Have you been like a match-going fan? Have you been a season ticket holder at all?
No, never been a season ticket holder. So I've been a bit of a mover. I lived in Newcastle for a few years when I was younger. I didn't go to uni. I just ended up there because I've got family. So sadly, that was when I was 18. So that was basically when Arsenal were at their peak, sort of 2003, 2004. So I did miss a few years where going to games was never going to be an option. Prior to that, obviously I was young, not having a family. Like my mum wasn't into football, not living with my dad. So I didn't have a father or a brother or a granddad that would take me to games. So the games I went to as a kid was ones where my mum would, arrange, buy it as a birthday present and take me up to the odd game here and there. So I wasn't brought up in a heavily, involved football Arsenal family. And as I say, when Arsenal were at their peak, I moved away. So I've moved around quite a lot, and I am South now. I live in Kent. I've just never considered a season ticket, mainly because of just life balance and budget. It's just been something that I always knew for years that it was always a waiting list, and I knew you have to be a member and wait. A good friend of mine's just got his season ticket this year, and it's took him, I think he says 10 years. Which is fair enough. And listen, I could have done the same thing, but no, I've always just been one of these fans that I'll renew my Arsenal membership most years, not every year, but most years I renew it, and I get to whatever games I can get to. There's been seasons where I haven't gone at all, just through work commitments and previous jobs. One of my old jobs, I used to work a lot of weekends and a lot of shift work. And there has been seasons where I've gone to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games. It really does depend on that kind of thing as well, and also people to go with. You know, so as I said to you earlier, a lot of my close friends of the year sadly have supported rival clubs, so that's not been an option. But that's what I love about doing this now. Starting the Red Cannon channel 6 months ago, as you mentioned before, channel's going really well. Getting to meet fans like yourself as well, and obviously we wouldn't be connected now without that channel. So you know, really enjoying sort of being part of the Arsenal community, both on my channel and elsewhere. And yeah, you know, for me, as I say, the watch-alongs are fun. We have a good laugh with the watch-alongs. We have the Cannon coins on the channel, which is our virtual currency where people gamble their coins and they can interact with the stuff around me on the screen. But it isn't quite the same as being there, is it? And it ain't quite as good as being on the sofa with I've got a big TV over there that I'd love to sit and watch the Arsenal one, but I don't. I sit here on the laptop or on the computer, watch it on here. But again, you know, it allows me to connect with other fans, and which I really enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. What's been your like most memorable moment as an Arsenal fan? What have you been there for any kind of special goal or a special trophy or something like that?
No, I haven't, mate. I haven't, sad to say. No. My most special memory of being there. Again, I've been really unlucky. A lot of the games I've gone to, we've lost or drawn, mate. There was a time where I was like, do you know what? I'm just a jinx. I think I've seen 3 games against Newcastle, right, and we've lost all 3. So I'll never go to an Arsenal Newcastle again. The most recent one I can remember, where I remember really losing my was against Palace. I think we got an equaliser a couple of years ago in the last minute. I was with a friend of mine. And again, it wasn't a massive game. It was just a league game, I think, on a Saturday afternoon. Okay. And we got a goal in the last minute. I think, was it Koscielny? But yeah, as far as big moments, no, back in the day when we were in a lot of cup finals, I was, as I say, I wasn't in the area to even consider getting to games. And now those moments don't come along too often, do they? So
no, they don't. Well, especially as an Arsenal fan, it's sort of more kind of, well, for me as an Arsenal fan, I can say, oh yeah, I was at the game when Granit Xhaka got booed off and he told the fans to do one. So.
Yeah, exactly, stuff like that. Yeah. I think now my situation is I don't have kids. But so, and my financial position and lifestyle now is very good for going to games. And I think that, you know, I will get to as many games again as I can, but yeah, you always, you know, it depends on what's going on in your life, you know, like with work and everything else, you know, unless you are living in and around London, you know, like I went to the protests, the Cronky Out protests. Both of them were like huge, you know, like a couple of hour trip, and it's a big deal. There was people I saw there that were sort of there at the protest, and they're like, right, well, I'm going to pop home now and do a watch along. And it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to be home for 3 hours now. So, you know, I think a lot of it depends on your location, you know, and I think if I lived near London, then I would probably get to a lot more games. So I think it would have been inevitable, really.
No, that's fair enough. So if we jump straight back into your 11, obviously we discussed the team. You can see it on the screen right now. We're going to get into the front 2 if you must, the number 10 and the striker. So for the number 10, who have you gone for?
Yeah, so no prizes for guessing here. Obviously it's Mesut Ozil. Bergkamp got an honourable mention. Jokes aside, of course it's DB10. Obviously,
I thought you were serious.
Listen, yeah, no, poker face, mate, poker face. Bergkamp is probably, he's the first one. Him and Henry, Vieira, those kind of players. You just can't leave them out. I mean, listen, I don't know if I've ever seen an all-time 11 without Bergkamp. I might be wrong. I don't know.
Okay. Well, we had some of ours weren't just because of some of us did it with the idea of for our generations and who we've seen.
Yeah. I just think if you, he's just, mate, he was just, they called him the Dutch master, the Iceman, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
He was my hero. He more than Patrick Vieira, more than Tony Adams. He changed the club, and arguably he changed English football. And I'm not telling anything to anybody that doesn't already knows anything about Bergkamp, doesn't already know. But he came in, he got off to a bit of a slow start, took a couple of games to get his first goal under his belt. I think it was against Southampton. And that 97-98 season, and I must share this scrapbook with you. I really will. I'm going to do a stream or a video on it, so you'll get to see it. But he, that year he took us to the title. Between him and Ian Wright, but specifically Bergkamp was a difference maker. Yeah. That hat trick of goals against Leicester, where that was, I don't know if you know, but he got goal of the month. They used to do goal of the month for 1, 2, and 3. He had all 3.
Oh yeah.
So he got goal of the month, second. Yeah, and in that one game, I remember exactly where I was. I was on holiday in Norfolk, and I was listening to it on the radio because back in my day, we used to have to listen to the radio for football because you couldn't get streams and stuff like that. That's how old I am. But yeah, I remember, and it's this guy, his touch, and when you go about his best goals, the Newcastle goal always comes up, doesn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
have you ever seen anybody score a goal? There is. Mate, he meant that. He meant that all day
Mhm.
long. I don't care what you say.
Yeah.
And no one else would attempt that. No one had the audacity to even try something like that. The goal at Roker Park against Sunderland. I think he done a Maradona turn and then he took a defender on and he just opened his body up and flicked it top bins.
Mm.
And there is just countless. And actually, what's quite weird about Bergkamp, and I'm not sure this is completely true, so you might tell me I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that his goal tally, I think Giroud run it close or may even overtook him. And I think Van Persie might have scored more goals as well. But
Oh.
it's the quality of goals.
Mm. Yeah,
The
and
quality.
he wasn't an out and out striker as well, was he? So I
No,
mean,
no, no.
a goal scorer and attacking midfielder in a way that he had everything. He was probably one of the most well rounded players to
And
kind
do you
of
know what? He
yeah.
wasn't as. And the other thing is as well, a lot of players that sort of like in that mold that you think of over the last sort of 10, 15 years,
Yeah.
they normally, like, let's use Mesut Ozil an example, right? Would you use words about Mesut Ozil as dirty? Now, when I say dirty, what I mean is like get stuck in, not scared of a challenge, and will get among, really ruffle some feathers. Obviously not. Never ever would you say that about him. And a lot of people in that position. Bergkamp was no pushover. He got a few red cards in his time. He got some red cards, and he, in our heyday, in our sort of battle with United, he was getting amongst it as much as Vieira's and anybody else. He was stuck in. He would not, he was not. He would get in a challenge. He'd do a bit of verbal back. And listen, I'm not saying necessarily that's the right way to play, but back then you had to be like that if you wanted to be a winner. And he was just a born winner. And what I love about Bergkamp as well is that he finished his career with Arsenal, and he's one of very few legends that hasn't spent the last 10, 15 years basically slagging the club off, because it's very easy to do it as fans. It's it's kind of fortunate, bitter fans, maybe people like myself who have seen the good times and are now experiencing the bad times. It's a bit different when you're a fan, but when you hear club legends and players speaking ill of the club, it does hurt somewhat. And Bergkamp's always kept himself to himself, and that's why him getting behind this Daniel Ek bid was so surprising, because you
Yeah.
don't hear or see from him. And I think he's over. I think he's still at Ajax. I think if you asked him, Ajax is in his heart as much as Arsenal. He grew up there.
Yeah.
That is in his blood. But how much more would this guy have done if he could have flew? Like he missed a lot of Champions League games. And potentially, we would have gone further in some of those competitions if he been on. He played as often as he could. But my God, what a player! His touch, skill.
Mm.
Have you ever seen the commentary for the goal he scored against Argentina in the World Cup?
Yeah, the Dutch, is it the Dutch commentator?
Have you seen it? When he's like,
Yeah.
just be the ball, just Bergkamp. Oh, guys, anybody watching, if you haven't seen it, just type on YouTube, Bergkamp, Argentina. Be the first one that comes up. The commentator. So basically, I think it was an extra time. It was a quarterfinal of the World Cup in 2002. And he basically scored a replica goal that he scored against Leicester for Arsenal. Long ball from Frank de Boer, comes down, one touch like glue, pulls it back in defender. And then on this time, it was on the outside of his boot, top bins. And that knocked Argentina out, who I think were the favourites at the time.
Yeah.
This commentator goes ballistic, and it always puts a smile on my face.
Yeah.
That it really does.
Whilst you're at it, just type in Bergkamp kind of skills and highlights as well, because what a way to pass the time. I mean,
yeah,
unbelievable player and just one of a kind that we'll never see anyone like him again.
No.
Rightfully so. Why he's got a statue outside the Emirates. But yeah, speaking of statues outside the Emirates, I don't think it takes a genius to guess who your up front pick will be. There's been some interesting ones. Someone went with Shamak and someone up front.
Yeah, right. Whoever that is, are you sure they're an Arsenal fan?
Yeah,
they got to be bantering you.
It was Josh, one of our guys on here. He went with he went with two very I think it was Van Persie and Shamak or something like that up front.
Right. Well, listen, I can I can't stomach Van Persie because there's just too much. Why would you put Van Persie in there when you've got a Bergkamp? Why would you
Yeah,
put a Van
yeah.
Persie?
Mm.
But I will accept that for certain people if they, of that generation. I can swallow that, albeit it will be hard. You
Yeah.
can't put a Shabak anywhere near to a best 11. Shabak wouldn't even get in our team now. That's
No,
how
no.
poor Shabak was.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, no, we all absolutely went in on him for that one. But yeah,
Yeah, bloody right.
so yeah, you've gone for Bergkamp as your number 10 and
Yeah.
your striker up front. I'm guessing it's not
Yeah, well, obviously it's TE in it. It's Thierry Henry. Listen, before I talk about Thierry Henry, I was looking at this and saying I want Ian Wright in here. How can I get Ian Wright in here? Because
yeah.
like I love Ian Wright. I mean, he's such a gooner. You see his face the other day against Brentford. Like that guy just he's one of us. Like
He
you
lives
feel
and
like he's
breathes
one of us.
Arsenal. Yeah, definitely.
And I've never met him. I'd love to meet him. I'd love to just shake his hand and say thank you for everything he's done for the club. And not just what he's done for the club when he's at the club, everything he's done since. Yes, I think he is still involved in the club. He was involved in the Adidas thing. There's been a few tweets here and there. You go, come on, Ian. Like, but at the end of the day, it all comes from a good place, right? He's a gooner. You know that he loves the club, if just as much, if not more than many of us. And he was the first player that I really truly sort of idolized. So I had a video, VHS, Dan. Don't know if you've ever heard of it, mate. It used to be a way we used to watch things, right? Okay. VHS, big square blocky things. So I had a video of Ian Wright. It was called Ian Wright 100 Not Out, and it was his first 100 goals. I watched this thing on bloody repeat so many times, right? Ian Wright's first 100 goals. And he was talking, like, he would talk about the goals and different stories. And he was so young. I've looked that up on YouTube. It's not on YouTube, and I've looked all over the internet, and I cannot find that. So, guys, anybody watching, if you've got a digital version of that, please share it or tell us where we can get it. Great video. And to say, Ian Wright scored some blinders. There was a couple against, there was one against Swindon, which was about 45 yards out.
Yeah.
Everyone remembers Ian Wright for being a poacher. That's probably how you would remember him. In the box, in at the right time. A lot of people remember his when he broke Cliff Bastin's record against Bolton, he scored his hat trick and he had the 180 not out vest. And they were very Ian Wright-esque goals. But actually, if you actually see a lot of his old goals, there was one goal, I think it was against Everton, and he done a Gascoigne. So you remember what Gascoigne done against Scotland, where he chipped it over and chipped it over back. Yeah. He scored a goal. Ian Wright scored a goal like that against Everton. I think it was Everton. It was a team in blue. He done exactly that, and this was pre-Gascoigne. It was over again, and then put it away. He had it.
He says that's his favourite goal ever. I remember him.
Oh, does he say that's his favourite?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Because I remember he did a video with Aubameyang and Lacazette, and they were playing like their favourite goals for Arsenal. Yeah. And then he did that one where he chips it over, chips it back, and then he goes over the keeper, doesn't he?
That's it. Was it Everton? I think it was Everton. It was a blue team.
Blue, I'm not sure. I think it might have been.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Ian Wright to not be in an all-time 11 for Arsenal says more about Arsenal than it does Ian Wright, because I think that he deserves, it is good enough. And I think I've always said I think he deserves a statue. I don't know why that's never happened yet. I think he definitely deserves it. I think it's a real shame. He's getting on now. He's in his mid to late 50s. That would mean the world to him. And that guy, listen, he lost his great friend David Rocastle. He's battled quite a few demons over the years. The guy's been through a lot, and I'm not saying he should get a trophy because of that, but it's a very inspiring story. And I know there was a documentary about him recently, which I didn't actually see, but my missus saw him on the Jungle, Celebrity Jungle. He was on there. Yeah. And when he went into that, I thought, oh, he's going to win this. Like, I know Ian Wright. He is the diamond. And actually, he wasn't that good on it. And my missus was like, I don't like him. I said, what do you mean you don't like him? He's Ian Wright. I just don't like him. He's miserable. Well, actually, I don't think you saw the good side of him on that show, because he was obviously hungry and everything else. So my missus was like, oh, I don't know why you say he's a nice guy. I said, he is. He's a top-notch bloke. And then she saw the documentary, which I've not seen. And it told you a bit about all, his troubles he's been through and, everything through his life. And then she said to me after, she's like, now I've actually seen that. She says, actually, I really respect him as a man, because obviously she doesn't know him as a player. And I was like, well, that's the point. It's not always about what you do on the pitch. It's who you are, what you represent. Look at the guy behind me, the quote, so Ian Wright not being in there, again, I tried to find a formation. Again, if it was a case of just picking favourite players, then I'd probably, I'd probably drop out a Winterburn and put an Ian Wright in and but I'd have a silly formation, right?
Yeah.
So couldn't do that. But back to the point, what can I say about Thierry Henry that probably no one else has said? Well, listen, there is nothing I can say about Thierry Henry. All I can tell you is that I cannot split him and Bergkamp as my all-time favorite, right? It's like, I don't have kids, but I would imagine it's like choosing between your children. Like, who do you love the most? Like, I can't split them. They are my two players. Again, for everything I've said about Ian Wright, Bergkamp and Henry are just a bit better players, and that's why he didn't make it. But Henry, just so many times he would, he was another leader. He was another captain. You just always felt, when I used to watch Thierry Henry, no matter what the result was, no matter what the game was, all the time he was on the pitch, you knew, well, we're going to score. Like, we're going, he has to, it was like a goal a game. It felt like, must be like what Barca felt like with Messi all these years. All the time he's on the pitch, we've got to guarantee that's one goal minimum. We're already 1-0 up before you start, maybe two. Yeah. And I think of the games, when he, the goal against Real Madrid, the hat trick at the San Siro, the unbeaten season against Liverpool. I think we were 2-1 and down at half time, and he come on and scored 2 worldies in the second half. And even in the last game against Leicester, that last game, we were 1-0 down. I think we were 1-0 down. We were 1-0 down, weren't we? At Highbury, and that was going to be the Invincible season, and we nearly bottled it. And then I think he scored a penalty, and I think there might have been another goal as well. But again, even on that very moment, the only thing that guy ever did wrong is he missed an opportunity in the Champions League final. Outside of that, it was essentially a perfect career. And it hurt to lose him. It really hurt to lose to Barcelona. That broke my heart. But it was a Wenger thing, because Wenger had this policy back then of, we don't retain players once they go into their 30s. And it was kind of just like Wenger was just running the team the way Fergie did at United. This is my policy. This is how I run things. And regardless of how big a legend, Fergie let your Beckhams go and everybody else. That was kind of where we were. It's like, no matter how big a legend you are at the club, we're going to make new legends. And back then, you'd assume that there wouldn't have been another Henry, but there was going to be another striker that would fill those boots, to a certain point. And obviously, it's never happened. But I've got in my garage I shouldn't say it, but nobody knows where I live, so I'm all right. I've got a signed Henry shirt in a frame, and it's from the Invincible season, and that's my pride and joy. And that's followed me everywhere I've gone. It's always normally been in the front room, but this is a house where it won't fit. Unfortunately, we don't have big enough walls. But yeah, that's in my garage. And every time I walk out there every day when I'm grabbing something and I see that, it just puts a smile on my face, because what a player! What a player!
Thierry Henry. So you can now see Scott's 11 all-time 11 up there. Obviously, I know you said very honourable mention to Ian Wright. Again, a player which, well, for me, I think I, as a fan, have fallen in love with Ian Wright and who Ian Wright is as a pundit, because again, before my generation, never got to see him play apart from clips and videos. But a guy that just bleeds Arsenal, and a guy that you just know he's proper Arsenal, and he will follow the club until his days up. So so brilliant 11 there. Love all your reasoning for picking those players, mate. Cheers for joining us on this episode. It's been a very fun one.
Thank you for having me on, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
Debut on the ArsenalVavel channel, so hopefully keep your eyes peeled, guys. Make sure to drop Scott a subscribe on the Red Cannon channel. Do you just want to kind of explain a bit about what the channel's about and what you do on it?
Yeah, okay, yeah, always good for a cheap plug. So basically the Red Cannon, it is, yes, we got a million Arsenal fan channels out there, right? Listen, there are millions of them, but what I've tried to create on the Red Cannon is something that's just a little bit different and just gives you another reason to watch. So I'll give you an example. Well, actually, I'll tell you an example in a minute. But basically what we do is you get rewarded for watching. And what I mean by that is we have a virtual currency. We call it the Cannon coins. Every minute that you're watching one of the live streams, you accrue these coins, okay? But they don't mean nothing, okay? What we use with those coins is we have a virtual stream. So essentially what happens is you build these totals up, and you can spend those by typing stuff in the chat. And what that will do is that will directly interact with what's happening. So there's one, for example, that's a punch, right? I think it's 160 coins. You type in exclamation mark punch, a big fist to come over and give me a punch. Now, listen, it's a bit of fun, bit gimmicky, but people enjoy it. We have things where we play the chants behind me on that screen. So we have all the Arsenal chants. We have fire. You can turn me into a gangster, Mexican. There's loads. We've got loads and loads of different stuff. It's a bit of fun. It's a bit of a gimmick, but we also use them for other things as well. So recently we did a giveaway on the channel a couple of weeks ago, and those people that had a lot of coins could exchange those coins for raffle tickets. And as with anything, the more raffle tickets you have, the more likely you are to win. So there are actual physical prizes you can get for those. But we also do watch-alongs. So we did a watch-alongs for all the Arsenal games. This season, we'll be doing watch-alongs for some of the big games outside of Arsenal as well. And you can gamble those coins as well, which everybody loves. During the Euros, everybody on my channel become gamblers. We were gambling on anything and anything. Scott, can we bet what colour pants you're wearing? Yeah, okay. Well, what do you want to bet? Like literally everybody was betting on all sorts of things. And we also have interactive polls. So you can directly, we do the polls on the screen and you can type your votes in on that. We get loads of great guests like yourself, Dan. You've been coming onto the channel. I think you brought up your hat trick recently.
Yeah.
Dan will be with me tomorrow. We'll be doing a Chelsea reaction show after the match. So make sure you do check that out as well. And as I say, starting to get more people involved, more guests on the channel. And listen, it is kind of a one-stop shop for everything. Watch-alongs, post-match reactions, previews, press conference reactions. And then on top of all that, you get rewarded for watching by having a bit of fun in the chat. And we've got a really good little small community growing. I think we're up to about 1,500 subscribers, 1,600 subscribers now in less than 6 months, which I think is not a bad shout, really. So if you want to come check us out, as I say, Dan said the link will be down below. Please come join in the fun.
Yeah, definitely, mate. So cheers for coming on. Obviously, we do have a game at the weekend. Just obviously, I know this will be in the series, but obviously just for people, this will hopefully go out tomorrow, which will be Sunday. So we'll be talking on the same day as the game. So the game will hopefully be we'll try to release this before kickoff. So hopefully the game's in a couple of hours, maybe starting to build up to the match. But just a few quick, brief kind of feelings ahead of the Chelsea game.
Well, Chelsea's always painful. Like I said to you about my old man being a Chelsea fan, so I always get a little bit extra nervous for Chelsea games. Well, we done a poll on my stream yesterday, and the majority of the fans, was 81% of the fan base in my stream said that they believe we're going to lose, and I think 60% of those said we're going to lose heavily. That just says it all for where we are as fans. I'm not quite so pessimistic. I'm not as optimistic as yourself, Dan. I know when I've had you on, you're a very optimistic fan, which I completely respect. I'm not the most negative fan in the world, but I'm certainly not the most positive. I don't think we're going to get smashed, but I do think we're going to lose by the odd goal. Could be 1-0, could be 2-1. I think Arteta's going to try and do an Arteta. We're going to try and sit deep. We're going to try and absorb, put faith in that defence and then break. I expect Pepe to start. I think Saka might start as well. And I think we're going to hope that we can get some luck down on the wings and just break. But the big concern for me is even if we can get out, we're only going to potentially make a few opportunities. If Aubameyang, Aubameyang's not playing, is he? So I'm not quite sure who's going to play through the middle.
Go, apparently, he's being assessed ahead of the game.
He's been okay, fair enough. All right, if he's assessed, he'll probably play then. So we need a performance from him. If we're going to win tomorrow, he's going to need to be part of it because we're not going to create much. I don't think we're not going to have much possession. And we got to basically similarly do what Spurs did to City last week, which is sit deep, break, and make it and be clinical when you get those opportunities. I don't think there's going to be another way of winning tomorrow. But again, I just feel like with Lukaku making his debut, he's going to want to prove a point. You look at all their abundance of options going forward. I think it's going to be tricky to get out of there with anything. And I think my concern is if we concede early, so if we're 1-0 down within 20. Then it could be a long afternoon. But if we can keep it tight till half time, staying it to around about an hour, and then see what we can do.
Yeah, we've all got our fingers crossed, and hopefully we can get a good result. So make sure have a look at Scott's 11 there. Leave a comment down below if you agree with it. Obviously, if you feel there could have been some changes in there. I know this is personal to Scott, but who means something to you, and what players do you think?
Comment down below why it's wrong, and then I'll reply and tell you why you're wrong. Yeah, all good.
But yeah, cheers for joining us, Scott. Brilliant to have you.
Cheers, Dad. Thanks for having me, mate.
Make sure to drop a follow to Scott. We'll leave all your links to your socials, your Twitter, your YouTube down below. Make sure to subscribe, drop him a follow. So make sure to follow ArsenalVavel on Twitter at ArsenalVavel1. Subscribe down below, like the video for it really does help us out, and make sure to catch us again in another one soon. But cheers for being the latest in the my 1 to 11, Scott, and we will catch you again in another video soon. Cheers, guys.